Brian here with Guitars, Whiskey, and Golf. Thanks for joining me today. So 2026, here we go. I wanted to do a video on 5 trends in the whiskey industry that I'm ditching in 2026. As we go along, I'll explain a little bit more about where I'm at in my whiskey journey and where I'm at with these various trends because nothing's written in stone. So just because I'm emphasizing something or de-emphasizing something about my whiskey purchasing and whiskey intake doesn't mean it's an absolute written in stone thing. And I'll explain a little bit more. So the first trend that I am ditching in 2026 is ultra high proof hazmat type whiskey. So, we're talking 135 north, on the proof point of the whiskey. After many, many years of whiskey buying, enjoying whiskey, whether it be neat, on the rocks, in cocktails, I've just decided that for myself, whether it be health, that's part of the equation. I'm just not going to be dabbling that much in ultra high proof hazmat type whiskey. I'm finding that more and more the proof points that I'm really, really enjoying are far below that. In the bourbon and rye world, it might be 115 and lower. In the Scotch realm, it's probably in the low 90s. Same with Irish whiskey. And so, it depends on the type of whiskey I'm enjoying. But I'm just finding that, at these proof points of 135, the whiskeys are so fiery that I'm just really not that interested. Sure, I could add water and dilute those whiskeys down, and I do that. And that's perfectly acceptable if you want to add a couple of drops of water to your whiskey. And again, I'm not saying I'm never going to buy an ultra high proof or hazmat borderline whiskey. That's not the case. I'm just saying I'm really de-emphasizing that trend in my whiskey purchases. Number 2, overly emphasizing bourbon in my purchases. So, I'm a lover of bourbon. I love rye whiskeys. I'm a huge fan of scotches. Irish whiskeys I really like. And I'm a big fan of Japanese whiskeys. And one of the other regions I'm going to be getting into in 2026 is single malts from India, such as Paul Jean and Amrut, etc. So I'm not saying I'm not going to buy bourbon. I'm definitely going to be buying bourbon in 2026, but it's not going to be like an overwhelming majority of my whiskey purchases in 2026. I'm going to be delving more into Irish whiskeys and Irish single malts, scotches, Indian single malts, American single malts, a huge, huge favorite of mine in terms of the category. So there's a whole world out there of whiskeys, and bourbon just is not going to be dominating my buys. Still going to be buying it though. Amburana finish. Nope. Not going to be buying a single bourbon finished in Amburana. That was real trendy for a year, sort of in that 2024-ish period, and not a fan. I just don't like the flavors that Amburana imparts into a bourbon. That overly cinnamony, cinnamon toast crunch thing, to me, it doesn't work. It's not what I'm looking for in a whiskey. When I'm sitting down to drink a whiskey, I don't want to feel like I'm drinking a bowl of cinnamon toast crunch. And let's face it, that's kind of what the dominant tasting notes of Amburana is. And the thing about Amburana too is that it's really tough to tame. I've got some bottles of Amburana that I've actually blended with some other bourbons to try to tame out the Amburana. And that damn Amburana finish just lingers no matter how much I blend it with some other stuff. So Amburana, dead for me. Won't be buying any of it. Paying a premium for things like grain to glass. Um, you know, I like the concept of grain to glass. It's just like farm to table. It's all about sourcing local ingredients to make the food at a restaurant or to distill whiskey, and that's awesome. I like the concept, but am I going to pay a huge premium because the bottle says grain to glass? And no, I'm not. So a good example is going to, Heaven Hill's grain to glass product, $125 for those bottles. To me, they're not worth it. They're fine, but just because it's grain to glass doesn't mean that I'm going to pay some huge premium for it. So, that's just me. Or bottles or cigar blends. First of all, there is no industry definition of what a cigar blend is. And so at the end of the day, it's marketing. It's basically a blended whiskey of multiple bourbons blended together, and to come up with something that they label a cigar blend. And I'm not going to pay a huge premium just because you put cigar blend on the bottle. And now it doesn't mean that there aren't really good cigar blends out there. Joseph Magnus, obviously, Starlight's made a nice cigar blend. So, I understand that if you have to source from various different locations and marry these and spend some extra time maturing all the various components so that the flavors marry up, that might be a little bit more cost in your operation. So I'm not saying I'm not going to buy a cigar blend, or that I, might be willing to step out a little bit on price, but I'm not going to necessarily pay some huge upcharge just because the bottle says it's a cigar blend when there is no industry definition of that. And that's just somebody's interpretation of a whiskey that would happen to blend nicely with a cigar. There are a lot of whiskeys that blend with cigars, and they're not cigar blends. Um, and then lastly, it's probably just excess buying just for the sake of it. If you've been on your whiskey journey for 5, 10, 15 years, something like that, you've probably got an extensive collection of whiskeys, because whiskeys aren't like a bottle of wine. A bottle of wine, 4 glasses and it's gone. With whiskey, sometimes a bottle of whiskey might stay on your shelf for 2 years because you have so many other bottles. You're only taking a sip here, sip there of various things, and your collection grows and grows and grows. And so for me, just buying for the sake of buying, so I have something to review or something like that. Um, I don't do Patreon or anything like that. So, every bottle I buy is my own purchase, my own money. I don't get samples sent to me or anything like that. So, for me in 2026, excess is out. And that's in a lot of aspects of my life. If something catches my fancy, if there's something, a type of whiskey I want to pursue, learn more about, like I mentioned, single malt whiskeys from India. So I'm going to be delving into those this year, because it's something that's interesting to me. I'm not necessarily just buying the next bourbon just so I can have something to review and have something to stick on my shelf. So I'm getting rid of excess in 2026 and just focusing on core things that are really, really interesting to me, things that I've researched and I really want to pursue. So that's me. Tell me about yourself. Shoot me a comment. Let me know what your journey in whiskey is going to be like in 2026. I'm not the be all and end all. I'd love to hear what you've got to say. Take care, everyone. Bye.